one time he came back and he says, you know, there's a little store with one room in the back. If you want to open up a store, we can go and move out there. And I lived with an old lady, and she was terrible. She gave my little Lenny a very hard time, and I lost 2 kids before him. So if anybody just said boo to that kid, I was ready to scream. And she was old, maybe she didn't have the patience for a 2-year-old kid. So I says, I want to get out. And I asked the man what he sold the sweaters, and he told me where he buys it. He says, you're not going to go in competition with me. I says, no, we will move into Lowell. So we moved to Lowell, and there was this one little room and a store in the front. No bathroom, no toilet, no nothing. Just a little room on the side. So I says to Nathan, we'll take it. Everything is better than staying up there with that woman. I says, why don't you go to New York? You got a few dollars, buy some sweaters, and he told us where he bought. So he went in that place, he told him Stanton Street someplace, and he saw there wasn't just sweaters, there was socks and different things. So he bought socks, and he bought some, I think he spent maybe $200. And he came back. So I made a window, and this was right after the war. I made a window with a few socks and a few t-shirts and polo shirts. It was on a Friday night, and I said, well, next week we're going to open up. And the store was empty, completely empty. And we knew somebody had a haberdashery store, and we used to say, Mr. Flegler, can you give us some empty boxes? At least we'll fill it up with empty boxes, that the store doesn't look so empty. So, and I says, we're not going to open up until you go again and buy some more stuff, because there's nothing. And like I said, we stayed there and we lived there. So it was really hot outside, so we stayed outside and opened the door, and I was watching my 2-year-old little boy, and somebody came in and says to me, oh, a new store. And I couldn't even speak English. Not that I speak English too good now, but it was worse than that. And she says, oh, a new store. I says, well, it's not open yet. She says, well, you got socks. This was right after the war. Nobody had anything. I says, yeah. And I opened the door, and I sold for $40. I had my stuff for $100, and I sold for $40. Well, when Nathan saw that, it's a gold mine. You're going to go? I'm going. I says, Nathan, don't go crazy. Because he could. He was a buyer. He, just like I like to cook, he used to like to buy. So he went down and he spent $600. $600, the store started to get too small because there was no room for it. But we did a real big business because didn't cheat the people. If it cost me 10 cents, I used to sell 12, 15. It wasn't like a department store. So we stayed there maybe 6 months.
Okay, so do you think you applied the same philosophy that you learned when you were 15 years old, 16 years old?
Yeah, my mother was very honest, my father was very honest, and I learned to be really very honest. 6 months later, he says, there's a building for sale for $3,000, but it's empty. I looked at it and I saw it's a big store, and there were tenants upstairs. That time they paid $2 a week, and I lived in one room. So I says, well, we evacuate one tenant or give him something, and I'll live in one of the apartments. So that's what we did. We moved over there, and the rest is history.